What a good baby, cooed the mother-in-law at her grandson. So, Kevin, are you bored in your cradle while your mother has left you? Deanna, what are you talking about? Katrin tapped the ladle against the saucepan before hurrying back into the living room. You can see I'm making soup. I've only stepped away for a moment. But in my day, we had time to cook and care for the baby, her mother-in-law replied, and Katrin rolled her eyes, hoping Deanna wouldn't notice. Goodness, let's not dwell on that, Katrin laughed, handing her son a toy. He can lie there and play, he's not crying. Oh, Katrin, you're still so young, there's a lot you don't understand. Katrin had given birth to Kevin nearly 6 months ago, and throughout that time, her mother-in-law hadn't hesitated to remind her of her own experiences. Deanna never hid her disdain for Katrin, though she kept it concealed from her son and the rest of the family. After all, it was easier to feign concern for her son's well-being than to admit to being an unreasonable mother-in-law with a grudge against her daughter-in-law. David tried not to let his mother's words bother him, but Katrin often felt uneasy. Once a woman fixed something in her mind, she wouldn't rest until it was fulfilled. There were moments Katrin regretted marrying David, but she reassured herself that she wouldn't have to live with her mother-in-law, but with the man she loved. And that meant she could tolerate Deanna's sometimes peculiar but harmless quirks. David, I came by for a visit. Thinking you'd be home, Deanna called out. Mom, I've had the same work schedule for a year now. You'll remember him, right? Anyway, I looked at Kevin, and something unsettling crossed my mind. What's wrong? Is he okay? Did you notice something odd? No, don't worry too much, darling. I just noticed his eyes and hair and was surprised. You're dark with brown eyes, and then there's him. Mom, you're just overthinking it, David replied kindly. Many children are born fair with gray or blue eyes. Besides, the child inherits genes from both of us. Maybe something came from Katrin's side, and you're just worrying for nothing. You've got to relax, Mom. Exactly. I have a heart, and you're driving me crazy. You don't seem to care at all. At first, David trusted Katrin wholeheartedly, dismissing any hint of infidelity his mother suggested. But as Kevin grew, he found himself pondering his mother's theory more and more. After all, both he and Katrin had brown eyes, and their son had light hair and blue eyes, unusual for their lineage. Not a day passed without Diana bringing up her suspicions. That baby isn't yours. You need to get a paternity test, she insisted. No, Mom, I can't do that. It's a matter of principle. Where would it end? Surveillance on my own wife. Don't you think that's suspicious? Diana didn't stop there. Initially, she would merely agitate David, but eventually, she created a scene at a family dinner with everyone present. Of course, it's strange that Kevin is so light-haired when all of us are dark, Diana remarked casually at the table. Katrin's mother exchanged wary glances with her daughter. Well, my dad had fair hair and was curly, almost blonde. My husband was also light-haired, Katrin replied defensively. But with our genes, we should prevail. In our family, we've always had brown-eyed, dark-haired children. Well, genetics can be unpredictable, Mom, David interjected, trying to diffuse the tension. We're not geneticists, after all. And yet, it does seem a bit odd. Deanna, is there something you want to say to me? Katrin finally snapped. If you have a problem, just say it straight out. Oh, Katrin, why are you getting so worked up? Deanna said, feigning innocence. I was just making an observation. I was only having a little fun, is all. That's enough, Katrin declared, slamming the spoon down on her plate. The noise startled Kevin awake, causing him to cry in the other room. Deanna, just stop. You can't judge everyone by your own actions. If you've cheated in the past, it doesn't mean I have. How rude, Deanna huffed, crossing her arms defensively. Mom, why are you doing this? David pleaded. I told you. She wouldn't have reacted that way if there was nothing to hide. We need to get tested for sure, It's a disaster, Katrin's mother said, rising from the table and heading towards her daughter's room. David couldn't deny that she had a point, but it didn't excuse her behavior. In the days that followed, Diana didn't apologize to Katrin, and David tried to push the incident from his mind, pretending it had never happened. As weeks slipped by, he faced mounting pressure at work, and his mother continued her incessant nagging about Kevin not being his biological child. Eventually, David reached his breaking point. He visited the nearest clinic for DNA testing, sending in hair samples from both himself and Kevin. A week later, the results arrived. Staring at the paper, David was incredulous. The relationship percentage between him and his son was 0%. "See, I told you so," Diana exclaimed triumphantly. "Your wife is untrustworthy." "Mom, please don't shout it in my face," he retorted, covering his mouth with his hand. "Just wait until she gets back, and I'll..." When Katrin returned home after a stroll with Kevin, she was not expecting to face two furious relatives at once. "Hello, Katrin," her mother-in-law greeted her with feigned sweetness. "Good afternoon, Diana," she responded, noticing the tense expressions on both her mother-in-law's and husband's faces. "Why are you both so serious?" "I need to discuss something important with you, wifey," David said, waving the DNA test results in the air. Katrin, however, couldn't see what was written on the paper. "Whatever it is, let me put Kevin to bed first. He needs to sleep," she said, brushing past them, unaware of the disapproving look Diana shot at her son. 5 minutes later, she returned to the living room where David and Diana were waiting. David stood up and practically thrust the DNA results into her hands. "Here, take a look," he said. Katrin quickly scanned the paper. "This is about me too. That shameless woman," she murmured. "What is this, David?" she asked, puzzled. "It's a DNA test. It shows the relationship between me and Kevin, who I thought was my son. Do you see that 0? That's our relationship percentage." Katrin closed her eyes, exhaling deeply. "You aren't going to tell me anything. Who is his father?" I don't know, she cried, sinking onto the couch. "But it's not what you think." "Well then explain," David demanded. "What does this mean? Why don't you know who his father is? Were there 3 men involved?" "No, I didn't cheat. It's just, I did IVF." "Oh my God," Diana gasped, clutching her heart. "You mean that's the devilry of creating a child from a test tube?" "Hold on, Mom, sit down. What do you mean you did IVF?" "Exactly what it sounds like," Katrin replied. "But why?" David shot back. "Why would you keep this secret from me? You said your tests came back fine." "That's true. My tests were fine, but it turned out you had issues. You refused to undergo tests, and I didn't want to upset you. So I went forward with IVF using donor material without telling you. I don't even know whose it was. The clinic just provided it." "Why didn't you consult me? This is a huge decision." "Because you would have made a scene, and we would have ended up fighting again, and you didn't want to get tested anyway. So you decided to have a baby with another man." "David, I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. It would have been better if you had cheated on him than done this devilry," Diana interjected. "Mom, please don't interfere. Katrin, you should have talked to me about this properly. I would have understood. Who knew this would happen?" Gradually, tensions subsided. Though Diana remained upset that Kevin wasn't her biological grandson, David's concerns faded once Katrin provided documentation proving her IVF decision. The couple visited the clinic together, and Katrin's attending physician confirmed her account. But then something happened just a week later that caused Diana to stop her indignation and interference in their family. "Hi, Dad," David said, arriving at his parents' apartment at his father John's invitation. "Hello, David," John replied with a heady sigh, settling into his chair. "Where's Mom? She's usually home at this time," David inquired, sensing something was off. "She went out with her friends." I needed to talk to you about something. It concerns me, you, and your mother, he added after a moment of hesitation. Dad, you're scaring me. What's going on? You all seem so tense. Didn't you find it odd how persistent Diana was about the examination and her accusations that your wife cheated? Well, moms tend to worry about their kids. It's typical for mothers-in-law to be dramatic. You know how she is. I thought so at first too. But when we were at that family dinner, Katrin said Diana judges by her own standards. Initially, I dismissed it as a rash comment, but then I remembered something from years ago. He placed a piece of paper on the table, the contents startlingly familiar to David. Is this a DNA test? David asked, picking it up and examining it. Whose is it? It's one that tests our relationship, John indicated, pointing to the results. 0, David exclaimed, shocked. I can't believe this. It's all true, John affirmed calmly. It was evident he had come to terms with the truth and was grappling with how to reveal it. Just think about it. We've been married for 35 years. I thought we loved each other completely. And now I find out she gave birth to you 5 years after our wedding, which means... Dad, have you told her that you know? David interrupted. No, I haven't said anything. I'm unsure if I should. We've spent so many years together. Do we really need to shatter the peace we've built? So much time has passed, and I never noticed how she was behaving oddly. Maybe it was a crisis or something. Do I really have to destroy our family? Dad, I won't interfere, David replied, placing the test back on the table and sliding it toward his father. You need to determine what to do. This is your life and your responsibility. David, you understand that no matter what, you'll always be my son. A father is not just the one who sired you, but the one who raised you. Thank you, Dad. That means a lot to me. As promised, David refrained from meddling in his parents' affairs, allowing his father to contemplate his next steps. Almost 2 weeks later, David noticed changes in Diana. She no longer mentioned Katrin, seldom called him, and her tone had shifted to one of unexpected friendliness whenever they did speak. Eventually, David learned that his father had told his mother about the DNA test result. She had begged for his forgiveness, insisting it was a terrible mistake, swearing she had removed that man from her life long ago. His father, after so many years together, chose to forgive her, believing that this was a chapter best left in the past. Forgive me, you old fool, Diana said to Katrin during a visit after a long absence. And you forgive me too, son. I don't know what came over me to torment you like that. It's okay, I'm actually relieved, Katrin replied. I had a weight on my chest until David found out about the IVF. Just please don't pressure me like that again, David pleaded. I won't, darling, I promise. David went to the clinic for evaluation and treatment. A couple of years later, they welcomed a daughter, Elisa. But just as John had accepted David, he embraced Kevin as his son, forging a family that weathered the storm together.